Hi, Tim. Great to see you. How's everything going in Brattleboro?
Hi, Molly. Great to see you. Thanks for calling. It's going pretty well in Brattleboro. It's a little gray here. It's probably the same up there. And we're holding down the fort.
It sure is. We had some nice sun this week, but it looks like some rain and snow ahead. So, typical April in Vermont, but I think we'll get there. So you've been on the select board now for 3 years. You're the chair. You were appointed in March, I believe. You and I spoke a couple of weeks ago, but what's the latest on Brattleboro's COVID response? Tell us what's happening in your community.
Well, I'm happy to report that we're doing pretty well compared to a lot of communities around the nation. And even within Vermont, I think we're doing quite well. Brattleboro's main hospital, BMH, has had a few COVID-19 patients, and they've been treated and sent home. I believe there's one currently, as of today, still being treated. So there's been a few, 5 or 6 success stories in that area. And on a town-wide basis, we are blessed here in Brattleboro for having a very talented town manager and a great staff, professional firefighters, professional police department, terrific library, so many great town employees that number about 150 full-time equivalents. And everyone is sort of stepping up to the plate and really doing what has to be done, even though we're in this world of unknown and uncharted territory.
And how have you been meeting as a select board?
Yeah, we've been just right after the legislature approved the new meeting rules for towns. We did have to wait for that approval because we're a Dillon rule state, and so the town's exercise of that type of thing is limited before we get Montpelier's approval. As soon as we got that, we started to utilize GoToMeeting. In Brattleboro, it's a little more complicated than if we had a 3-person select board that are pretty much running the town. We have a 5-person select board here and a town manager, assistant town manager, all kinds of support staff. And so working out a few practice runs that were also open meetings, and then sort of getting our vibe down on how it all works took a couple meetings, but we've been using GoToMeeting successfully. We just have to stay away from that chat box because it doesn't really work for open meeting laws. So it's a brave new world. That's how we've been meeting, all from our own homes, with the luxury of being in our slippers, of course, like everyone else, and experiencing this new world.
That's terrific. We've talked a lot over the last few weeks with Vermonters around the state doing endless Zoom calls. I think so many people have. And as I say, sometimes it takes 15 days for us to build a new habit. And I think so many of us are building new habits. Certainly in thinking about running for lieutenant governor, we had a lot of conversations as a campaign team about how to use the office to create more accessibility and to use technology in a more thoughtful way to allow folks in Pownell and Canaan and Guilford and Pownell and all over the state to access the office and by using Zoom or town hall meetings. So in many ways, this has been a sort of unexpected test run for us. And the last conversation I had recorded was with Monique Priestley in Bradford, and she was talking a lot about the relief and response effort there. And one thing that we're trying to do is kind of profile what different communities are doing, how they're getting organized, what the needs are. Can you tell us a little bit about what Brattleboro's done to meet the immediate needs of COVID-19, either through mutual assistance or other efforts?
Yeah, sure. Well, again, I have to say that I feel blessed to be in this community right now, because while we were working out, how to meet remotely, working out how to safely transition our town staff from, being all together in our municipal center, which is fairly tight quarters, to being at home, making sure everybody's internet access was allowable to be able to meet, to be able to see each other. We were working on all those things as health and safety requirements for our own employees. And in the meantime, the community was really stepping up. around us, dealing with things that we just couldn't handle initially, which like you mentioned, the mutual aids, which are popping up all over Vermont. We have BAMA, Brattleboro Area Mutual Aid, which is a number of citizens and groups that have come together to create those Google Docs that are now familiar to people. What can I do to help? Here's what I need. And getting things like food assistance and just getting to the drugstore. Computer help is very key for some, especially older folks or people that just don't have the computers to use. There's been people donating time for remote computer assistance and things like that. And then we have other organizations that are well established that have just kind of pivoted in their role. One example of that is Retreat Farm, which I don't know if you're familiar with what they do, but they do a lot of farm education and a lot of great opportunities for kids to go visit animals in the farm. A lot of that stuff can't happen right now, so they've pivoted to go to provide meals to be sort of a gathering point for meal delivery. And it's just a wonderful example of what has happened in Brattleboro. And then I guess the last example I'd give is Groundworks Collaborative, who takes care of our homeless population here in Brattleboro. That's something that we provide, that we support on a town basis, but also on an individual basis. A lot of people give to Groundworks Collaborative. They've actually gotten everybody out of their shelter, which is very close quarters, into individual hotel rooms where people can isolate safely if they're not doing well medically. It's a much safer situation right now. And that was in collaboration with the state, who opened up some rules for funding to be able to make that happen. So a lot going on, and it's a lot of positive things happening.
That's terrific. The Groundworks Collaborative, the Retreat Farm, the Brattleboro Area Mutual Assistance Group. Do you think there are any sort of major lessons learned at this point, either from an organizing perspective or coordination perspective at a local or state level, that you would want to see carried forward post-COVID-19? Because I think there will be a post-COVID-19. We will get there. We will move on from this, I believe. Things will be different, but there's going to be a lot of opportunity. And what do you see?
Absolutely. I would hope that we're going to see a continuation of the kind of collaboration and volunteerism that we're seeing now. Clearly, it'll be a different flavor in the future when many people who are giving a lot of time to do all kinds of great things for their community will have to go back to real-time jobs or other roles in their households, for instance. But I hope to see that go forward. That spirit of community togetherness, I think, can continue into the future, and we'll have these lessons learned from this time where we really looked after our neighbors during this time, and there's no reason why that can't go forward more and more. And you know, I'd kind of, as a hope for the future, I'd like to see the great collaboration we've been having with folks up north in Montpelier, the governor, the legislature, the House, the Senate. I'd like to see that close collaboration go forward more. And because pre-COVID-19, I think we had a lot of just, you know, people in their boxes, in their silos. It's a term I don't like so much, silo, but I think this has broken things open a little bit and shown how interdependent we are. And I'd love to see that go forward after this crisis is either lessened or changed into sort of a long range thing that we're going to be dealing with on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. There's so much room for innovation. When we have fewer silos, I believe that we have more collaboration, both from legislators at the sort of representative or Senate level, working, you know, across the legislature and with the administration, but also a lot of businesses have come together. Vermont Glove making masks,
Absolutely.
Caledonia Spirits making hand sanitizer, and I'm sure that you just talked about the Retreat Farm, I believe, and just how do we adapt to the needs that we have. And I think, you know, we're learning a lot about adaptation and sort of how, as leaders either the chair of the select board, or I serve as an assistant attorney general, and I can say that in the AG's office, there's been a lot of adaptation as well. And certainly as a lieutenant governor, you want to be able to adapt. But do you have any thoughts from your experience as a leader in the Brattleboro community about what is good leadership, or what do you want to see from a leader in a time of crisis that you think we could draw on as a state moving forward?
Sure. I was actually thinking about that recently as I watched Governor Scott's, I think it might have been a couple of meetings ago. And I noticed that he was able to embrace a little bit of uncertainty. Let's just be honest, a lot of uncertainty, which we're all going through right now. And I think that's an important piece for leadership right now, to act like a traditional leader who often in our country and our part of the world, leaders are looked to provide answers, or provide their answers, so to speak. But this is a moment in time where I think we have to be very careful on the direction we take people and the advice we give people. We have to be very cautious on the steps we're taking, and I see that happening in Montpelier right now, and I think it's very important on a local level as well to provide sort of a calm leadership, but not to feel like you have to have all of the answers, because no one does at this point. Even the medical community, when we talk about tactics, about how to deal with the crisis going forward, there's so many unknowns, and so many good people are working on the science that we just have to be a little bit patient, embrace that we can't know everything yet and know the exact correct direction to take, but also be very science-based. I've talked about that a lot, and not to go off on a tangent that could lead people down the wrong road and make matters even worse. So I think I over-talked that a little bit, but what I'm trying to say is that I think leadership sometimes involves embracing the unknown.
I think that's a really good ending thought to our interview today. There is so much uncertainty, but there's a lot of room to bring more people, I think, into the process of finding a response into government. It is a good time to have a steady hand at the tiller, to believe the experts and to trust them, and both at the local level, at the county level, and at the state level. And I think we have so much to be proud of here in Vermont in our response, and we'll see as time goes on that we have done a good job, and that slowly but steadily we will adapt to a new normal, and think about everything from our food systems and how we support our communities from a food security and economic security perspective, to access to broadband, workforce development. I think there's a lot of lessons learned, and we will have to come together as a state even more, I think, than we have over the last couple months, and we've done a tremendous job. But I think there's a real opportunity for adaptive leadership, because we will have to continue to adapt. So I want to thank you for your time today, and I'd love to keep in touch and keep us updated on what's happening in Brattleboro. Do you have any final thoughts or questions or things you'd like to share about your work, or what you see for the future, or Brattleboro?
No, I can't really think of anything now. I was going to ask you to go ahead and let us know your connection to this area, because so much sometimes of state leadership is focused up north. But someone told me the other day that you had a connection to the Marlboro area.
Oh yeah, I do. I would say Windham County's my second home. I live in Orange County, or was born and raised in Orange County, but my dad grew up in Putney. His folks, my grandparents, helped build and operate the Putney School. They're Mabel and Edwin Gray. And my mom, Kim Mumford, was born at Brattleboro Hospital, but grew up in Marlboro and Dummerston. And my grandfather, Jack Mumford, started the Brattleboro Tire back in the day. So my roots run deep there, and Southern Vermont is incredibly important to me, and I certainly as Lieutenant Governor, would want to give your part, our part of the state, Southern Vermont, a real voice and work with some of the incredible legislators you have. And I think what you said earlier about how you all have come together at the local and countywide level is pretty commendable. And
That's
yeah,
terrific.
and I'll be in Brattleboro as soon as we can get back on the road. And I look forward to getting down for the strolling of the heifers whenever that's rescheduled.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
seeing you in person soon.
Well, that'd be great. Yeah, and the fact that you reached out to get some words and to have a discussion is much appreciated. So thank you very much for the call.
Thank you. Stay in touch.
Take care.
Take care.